You're listening to the Screaming Pods Network.
You have any weird, creepy cryptid stories? Like, I don't have any. I've been in the woods a lot. Maybe not more than the average person.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I've never seen any animal. I was like, what the fuck is that thing?
Yeah, actually, I do. I admittedly have a very big and wild imagination. I also am...
It's not a bad thing.
I'm also scared of everything. Like, everything gives me anxiety. I'm a very anxious person.
You're very careful.
So I'm always jumping to like the worst conclusions. So I personally think I have had an experience, but it could have, it can very easily be explained by a child's imagination.
Okay, how old were you? What happened?
Goodness. I was, let's say, probably in first or second grade. I lived in Midland, Michigan, and you can look this up on Google Earth. I lived on Adams Street, so look for Adams Park. It's behind Adams Elementary School. I used to spend a ton of time in the woods behind my elementary school, like not getting into trouble or anything. Like I was a relatively good kid. Like I was good. So one day, we actually had a babysitter over the summer. So she took myself and my little sister. I think my little sister. Maybe I had a friend with me too. To the woods, just because I was like bugging her. I wanted to go to the woods because I'm a creep. My babysitter probably was like, I don't know, tied up with my younger sister or something. But I remember I had like veered off this path by myself, and it was one of those paths that were like higher level, and some of the canopy coverage opened up, so their sun was beating down, and you could like see over like a ridge and look down into the rest of the wooded area. And I remember as soon as I got in that open space on that ridge, I saw a big black animal ahead. All I remember, and I was pretty young, but all I remember is like freaking out because it was such a big animal. I thought it was a bear, but there are no bears in that town. Like
it was bigger than a dog?
I felt like it was bigger than a dog.
Well, you were still little.
I was still little, and I had never seen that dog before, and I spent a lot of time in that.
What was the
park.
biggest dog you had ever seen at that time?
Oh, I had a little teeny white cockapoo.
So you were not accustomed to like bigger dogs?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Have like experience with bigger dogs. Yeah,
Did it
because
have
even my
any other like well distinguished features?
Yes. So I can just see it in my mind. It's just big black fuzzy blur, but I saw it stand up on hind legs and start running towards me.
Weird.
Right. Again, devil's advocate, could have been a giant dog getting on its like just like lurching forward at me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I said, I have an imagination. I also feel like I saw a panther in the backyard of my very urban Metro Detroit apartment that I used to live in.
Mountain lions in that area?
No, so there are actually like reported cases of people spotting big exotic cats in the Metro Detroit area, because at one point there was somebody who owned a bunch illegally, and rather than get caught with more than what he got caught with, he released some to try to alleviate some of the penalties.
The DNR says some people see bobcats and mistake them for cougars.
Oh my God, they're so big.
Maybe that's what you saw.
Oh my God. I could have seen just a really dark bobcat. See if they have black bobcat. Yep, black bobcat.
Holy shit.
That's what I saw. That is exactly what I saw.
Okay, so that's not a cryptid, but that's still scary as hell.
Look how big that thing is. That is what I saw. This is what I saw. This is what I saw. I saw a black bobcat. Look at this. Look at this thing darting. Would you not see that and think it was a panther?
Okay, yeah. That's scary.
I finally feel like I have some resolution in my life. I thought I've been crazy this whole time. Oh, I love the internet. And speaking of this is Jill.
And my name is Ben.
This episode, we are turning to the subject of cryptids.
The state we're in right now,
Michigan.
Michigan.
We're
Michigan. If you want to pronounce
Sault
it
Ste. Marie.
correctly.
Yeah. Northern Michigan, filled with all sorts of urban legends that surround cryptids. Super cool. My favorite part about my drive every day into work are all of the Bigfoot cutouts that I see people just like hiding in the woods.
Yeah, people think that he's up here. I mean, even in the UP, but just the Midwest in general. Like we have the Michigan Dog Man, and then there's the Beast of Bray Road from Wisconsin.
Beast of Bray Road. Yes. Well, that's probably one of the most infamous cryptid cases in our nation.
Yeah, I feel like if you do a Google search for like cryptid sightings, that always comes up.
Right. And we were lucky enough to have renowned cryptid investigator and author Linda Godfrey join us at the fire to share the story behind the Beast of Bray Road.
I did not plan to build a writing career on something like unknown creatures, much less werewolves. Quote unquote. I don't believe that we're talking about actual werewolves. And I didn't from the very start when somebody from my little hometown of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, told me that she'd heard people around town were saying that they had seen some kind of creature, a dog or wolf-like creature, that for all the world reminded them of a werewolf. And they said they would use that term for lack of a better term, because they didn't really necessarily believe in werewolves either, but yet here this thing was. And I had just started working as a reporter for this weekly newspaper called The Week. I started because I wanted them to run my cartoons, and just happened to get pulled in as a reporter when I was on hand right when another reporter quit and they needed somebody. So that worked out really well, but unexpectedly. Then, of course, wouldn't you know, I would start hearing about something really strange. When they said there was a werewolf, I know that I laughed. I remember laughing, and thinking it was crazy. Then I found out, I just asked around a little bit, and I found out that, yep, people that I kind of knew and that I respected were talking about it. I was, at the time, also working with the county animal control officer, kind of right off the bat, because he was doing kind of a takedown story for himself on puppy mills in the area. And there were also some mutilated dogs that they thought might be coming from a nearby dog racing track. And so I had stopped in to see him about those things. And I said, by the way, have you heard that people are talking about something they're calling a werewolf out on Bray Road, which is a little country road, maybe 3 to 4 miles long. It's kind of a shortcut to our county hospital complex. And not the kind of place that you would expect to see something scary and creepy. So he said, well, do you mean this? And he opened his drawers of his desk and he pulled out a manila file folder. How much more official can you get? And on that manila file folder, there was one word, werewolf. So at that moment, people ask me still, how did you decide that this was worth writing about? Is that really news? It was New Year's Eve between 1991 and 1992 when the story actually ran, about a month after I investigated it. So this is a while ago, going on 27 years, I think. When you've got a manila file folder that is labeled werewolf in a county official's office, that's news. I'm sorry, but that's just news. So I talked to my editor, he agreed, and I started to interview people who had written in to the county animal control officer or called him and he'd been keeping their contact information in that folder, which he shared with me. So when I began to talk to these people, I realized one thing that surprised me. It wasn't just like a couple of kids or some, one or two people you might expect of playing a joke. It was a wide variety of people, from a young single mom to a farmer, to a couple of different farmers, to a middle-aged lady who lived out that way but drove to a factory late at night. There were some junior high kids who were chased by what they thought was a big doggy, but turned out to be an upright wolf-like creature. I was really watching the people closely and, trying to study them as they were talking to them, and I realized they still felt like it was happening in many ways. They would begin to sweat, or their faces would turn white or red. Some of them would shake. Many did not really want to talk about it. They were sort of coaxed into it by a relative or someone else that they confided in. They just didn't seem like people who were lying or making it up. I discovered, moreover, that not all the sightings were new. They went back to at least the 1960s. It told me that this had been going on for a while in isolation with each person. Everybody thought they were the only one that saw it. I still didn't think that it was probably, anything supernatural or even probably a giant wolf. But I thought they were seeing something, and it sounded like it could be some sort of dangerous predator, and in that case, people had a right to know that something was around that area, and they should maybe keep the children and the pets indoors. And my second thought was that if it was somehow a whole bunch of misidentifications or some strange thing that we didn't understand, at the very least, I had the unique opportunity to see folklore in the making. People were already talking about it among themselves. It was already turning into sort of a campfire story. I could only see that continuing. I mean, a story like that doesn't usually just go away. One county official proclaimed that he thought this was a coyote. Now, coyotes really aren't very big. People were describing something that would stand 5.5 to 7 feet tall. We're talking about a 36 to 40 pound coyote that would leap up in the air when a car approached it, and so high up that it looked like it was that tall, and then the car lights would hit it for just a flash of a second, and people would think that it was actually a wolf-like creature walking that tall, when it was really only a tiny coyote jumping up in the air really high for a second. And I said, well, that's more of a stretch than thinking that there might be some kind of wolf-like animal that can walk on its hind legs if it wants to, because walking on hind legs is not a supernatural feat for a mammal. Almost any mammal can do it, and lizards and things like that too, if it is sufficiently motivated. So I called this the indigenous werewolf, or the indigenous dogman, and I did a kind of forensic sketch of it based on reports from a lot of other people, because my degree is actually in art and art education. So drawing was kind of my thing. That was the whole reason I was trying to get into the newspaper, was so that I could draw things for it. So I drew this indigenous dogman. It's probably one of the most reprinted images on dogman all over the internet, because people will tell me, well, that looks like what I saw. But as far as knowing where the thing came from, that's always been a huge mystery. And I kind of looked to mythology and different Greek writers and other places, and I noticed many references to beasts coming out of caves, and then, of course, there are all the well-known stories of afterlife mythology where dead people go down to a land down below the earth, and there are monsters there and that sort of thing. People don't realize how many underground locations there are. They may not be old, long time natural caverns, but almost every city of any size has sort of a subterranean substructure, and it goes back at least to when large buildings were operated and heated with steam, and they had to have these big steam tunnels down below that just formed almost like a second city. A lot of Wisconsin towns and towns in other very cold places had separate passages between buildings on the lower level or basement level, so that if there was a terrible bad snowstorm and you didn't have snowplows and things like that, people could still get to town. They could make their way down to that lower chamber and get around to various places they wished to visit. This also worked during Prohibition for secreting different sorts of products all around and having little speakeasy bars and that sort of thing. So that's just one. You get to bigger cities, and then you've got subways, abandoned subways. Just about every city has tons of those. For some reason, they don't use them all. You have massive sewer systems. For a long time, I've been hearing legends about werewolves in the sewers of Minot, North Dakota. I've never really been able to prove it, but I did have a pretty convincing letter from one former policeman of that city. So I felt obligated to record it, not just for that first story, which ended up going national within a couple of weeks, but for the many, many other reports that began coming to me right away from not just the Bray Road area, not just Wisconsin, but all over the United States and the world. I remember getting a letter from the Virgin Islands within about 3 weeks from somebody who said, yes, I've seen it here. So I also realized that it wasn't a little homegrown fluke. This was something that was a widespread phenomenon. There was something to it. I didn't know what it was. I felt obligated to be sort of the keeper of the stories.
So what would you do if you saw the Beast of Bray Road?
If I saw the Beast of Bray Road,
The Beast of Bray Road?
it's like a tongue twister. Yeah, call that shit something else. The Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
If I sound like I'm in the Black Lodge, Twin Peaks. The
Beast of Bray Road.
The Beast of Bray Road. I have an accent now. The Beast of Bray Road. Yeah, if I saw anything like that, I'd instantly have my phone out and would be taking pictures of it.
Right. I want to see this thing. And I'm so curious. I mean, do you think it could be like the Michigan Dog Man? Like, do you think it could be like one and the same?
It's hard to get pictures of these things because they move quickly. And I mean, it is difficult to pull your phone out and take a picture quickly.
Especially if you're in shock. I'd be in shock.
Yeah, that's true too. Like, yeah, if you're like, oh my God, that's the Dog Man. Right. That's what's going through your mind, not fuck, get my phone.
But seriously, what a cool opportunity Linda had as, a new reporter. That's a dream job. Get it, girl. That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And we shared that Linda is a renowned author of that subject, but that's not really the only topic that Linda explores. She really takes a deep dive into all cryptids. We were really excited to have had Linda share one of the reports that she's recently received. It's an At the Fire exclusive, first told here. And all of you conspiracy theorists are going to love this firsthand account, retold by Linda Godfrey.
I did receive a really wonderful letter from a person less than a year ago, and it's one that I haven't quite been able to fit into a book. I've been debating whether I should share it on my blog. I haven't put it out yet. So this is going to be sort of a primary first-time reading or look at this letter, but from a person who is based over by Trempealeau and Galesville, which is the far west side of Wisconsin, not too far from the Mississippi River, and you have it's near a park called Trempealeau, where we have possibly the farthest northern pyramid structures. So there's a place. This is a place where there are already caverns, but it suggests that there may be human involvement too. And of course, the human involvement sort of always leads us to this place of these weird wolf-like creatures being somehow genetically tampered with or free from secret human labs under the earth. something we don't know. But I'll just give you kind of an overview. This gentleman wrote in and said, this happened, I estimate, when I was 10 years old, so 41 or 42 years from now. And my two younger sisters were 6 and 8. So this is several kids who are out and about. And they lived in a mobile home park not too far from Dalesville. They said their home was in the front row, as far away from a nearby highway as possible. Immediately behind us was a downward sloping hill, no mobile homes, that ended at an access road that ran back into a sand quarry several miles back. So that's kind of a desolate area he's got there right behind his home. It seems to have been abandoned. We never once saw a truck drive up or out of there, and there was a gate to it that was always open. Once or twice, a group of us walked several miles up into there, but usually we avoided the area. Immediately behind us, down the hill also, was a small wooded area where we would often play toboggan in the winter, and we had a large garden back there. To the right of our house was a small cornfield, and beyond it, a vast expanse of woodland that extended north, south, and east of us. I grew up at a time when there was no internet, 3 TV channels, no air conditioning, and it was routine for parents on summer vacation to just put their kids outside for the day. My sisters and our neighbor friends and others in the area would get together every day and play ball game, ride our bikes, but most of the time we would go into the woods and explore. On one of these trips into the woods with my sisters and the friends, we came upon an area many miles in where, from underneath the ground, you could hear a vast, cavernous collection of machinery running. It sounded like very large industrial pumps and the sounds of distant, immense metal machinery. For size, I'm talking about larger than a football field in volume, underground, and extending in a roughly circular area for hundreds of feet in all directions. The sound was so deep that you could feel a soft vibration in the ground under your feet. Now, this was under old-growth forest woodland. There was nothing in the area, no houses, no roads, no buildings of any kind for miles around. I don't know how fast tree species grow in Wisconsin, but the trees here were typical Wisconsin woodland trees. I would estimate they were at least decades old. Nothing discernible had ever been built on this land. So he's telling this, it's not like there was some kind of new construction there at all. It had this feeling of being pristine up above it. There was no sign of human habitation at all. His first thought that it was a large sewer pipe underground, and I was misinterpreting things, but the sound didn't fade out along a line. It and the vibration continued in a roughly circular area through the whole woods there. And that's really weird. I've spent a lot of time in a lot of woods in Wisconsin, and I've never heard anything like that. So I'll go on. My sisters and the others heard this as well, but didn't make much of it. They were pretty little. We were all out running around, and what were they supposed to think? If you ask them about it to this day, I doubt they'd remember it. It remains a mystery to me. I don't recall us ever going back to this particular area of the woods after this day, so I don't know if the sound continued or not. As years have passed, I've learned about a few things that may explain it, but they seem pretty far-fetched. And I've since learned that the U.S. military owns the vast majority of public land in this country. So there's a remote possibility they could have had something in the Wisconsin woods there, but it seems very unlikely to me. The whole thing has remained an enduring mystery.
This is a really interesting angle that I've never considered. Some of the cryptids that we talk about, entertain, they could be the results of scientific experiments gone wrong.
Right. I mean, who's to say what happened to people that were just released from some of these institutions that we used to have where people would be conducted on? I mean, I think of American Horror Story, whatever season Asylum was.
Well,
but that's a very real thing.
If you want a real scare, look up MK Ultra.
Yeah,
and all
exactly.
of the things the CIA was doing to our American citizens,
or even soldiers or people who serve our country.
Right.
Some people are experimented on,
and then other people voluntarily, willingly, consent to that sort of thing.
Right. I mean,
it's for the greater good of modern medicine, I suppose. But if you're turning people into dogs,
right?
Maybe read those terms and conditions. Read that contract.
Right. It's just another...
If there are a bunch of dogs in the facility or doing your paperwork in, maybe read that a little closely.
Linda Godfrey is the author of 17 books on strange creatures, phenomena, and people. She's a frequent guest on national TV and radio shows, including Monster Quest, Fox News Red Eye, Lost Tapes, Monsters and Mysteries, Sean Hannity's America, Inside Edition, Coast to Coast AM, Wisconsin Public Radio, and The Jenny McCarthy Show, and many, many more. She lives in the Kettle Moraine area of southeast Wisconsin with her husband and their monster dog, Grendel. If you plan on attending Michigan Paracon August 23rd through the 25th in Sault Ste. Marie, go say hi to Linda. She'll be there. Check out our website for links to all things Linda Godfrey.
Thanks again, Linda, for taking the time to share your stories with us. We know how busy you are, and we super appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we'd love to pick your brain again. And if you have a scary story like Linda Godfrey's, or if you've experienced anything else weird and creepy in your life, give us a shout. Give us a shout. But really, go ahead and head over to our website, submit your story, email me, admin@thefire.com.
Yeah, we've been talking to a lot of really interesting people lately, and they've got some really, really disturbing sometimes.
Things are getting kind of dark at the fire.
Some nights. Yeah. I hope you are ready for some spooky stuff coming your way in the future.
Because I'm certainly scarred from listening to it already. Thank you again for joining us. We can't wait to have you back next time.
As always, my name is Ben.
And this is Jill. And stay spooky. Music featured on this episode was made possible by 3 Chain Links, Blue Dot Sessions, and Lee Rosevear. You can find their music and more at freemusicarchive.org.
You're listening to the Screaming Pods Network.